All right, welcome back to my series where I'm going through the challenges in my book, The C Sharp Player's Guide. We're gonna just finish up this little part. There's basically this is like the fourth part of a four-part sequence dealing with kind of this arrow class, and here we want to make custom ordered arrows. So we already have that. So this is building on our code from before, and the idea here is there's a handful of arrows that are super common. You can do a custom one if necessary, but there's a few that are just it's what everybody goes with. We want to be able to modify that to create, some of these methods like this public static arrow, create elite arrow, which is our first challenge using static. And so modify the program to allow users to choose one of the predefined types or to make a custom one. So I'm going to scoot this to the side, and then I'm actually going to undo here a bit, get some code that we had in the first challenge that I deleted. Hopefully my undo history goes back this far. If not, I'm going to have to write it all again. All right, there we go. Okay. This is the code I was looking for. I am going to have to kind of patch this up. This is my custom code. So now let me redo. This is probably super exciting to watch. Okay. So let me get that in here. All right. So first things first. This says we want to make static. We want to make static methods for the three types of arrows that are super common, and this is the main. This is the main. Like this is really the value we're getting out of this is to just use static. So public static arrow create elite. So modify your arrow class one final time to include a static methods of the form public static arrow create arrow for each of the three above ones. So this should return new arrow with certain specific properties. So steel arrowhead and plastic fletching and a 95 centimeter. And then we basically want one of these for, so the elite arrow, the beginner arrow, and the marksman. And let's see, this one was 75. This one was 65. And both of these were goose feathers. And this was wood. This one was steel. Okay. So now we have even more ways to create an arrow. We've got these with these plus this constructor. So if I'm up here, like I can say equals, so I can say, I can just use the constructor as we've had before. And I guess I have 5 ways because I also have this one where you supply all the values. I have this one where we just fill in specific things. Given our new methods down here, these factory methods, I'm actually going to delete this for the moment. That was never actually up. I just happened to do that for fun. I'm going to delete that. And I'm just going to come up here. And so anyway, we can just create an arrow based on the values, if we want. Or because there's these new static methods, we can access them, and we access them through the class name. We don't create a new arrow to do it. We just go, class name dot whatever. And this is exactly the same thing that you've done with console dot write line and read line. Like it's literally the same thing as these. It's just your own creation. Um, it's just a method that we call directly on the class. It's static, and it just goes and it does some stuff, and it may or may not return things. Like this read line returns something. This toSingle returns, a float. This write line returns not, it's void. So, but you could create all of those yourself if you wanted to. Yeah. So the only thing that we've got left here is we need to be able to do something like console.write line. One is elite, 2 is beginner, 3 is marksman, 4 is custom. And then we'll do int type equals convert dot to that right there, which we've typed a million times. And then we will do this arrow equals. And what we want to do is this, based on what they chose, we want to call one of these other methods. So type, and that to me is a switch. So we'll use a switch. It's very common. So if they entered 1, then we are going to call the method arrow dot create elite arrow. If they chose 2, we're going to call arrow dot create beginner arrow. And if it's a 3, then we're going to call arrow dot create marksman arrow. And if it's a 4, this is where the custom arrow comes in. Now that we don't, so new arrow and the specific values. So we would put that in here, but right now we've got these methods right here that do all of that. And one thing that I think we could do is we could just make a arrow get custom arrow. So I'm just throwing this here in, like this is like directly in the main method. And we had code for this. So basically we'll do something like return new arrow, get arrowhead type, get fletching type, get length, missing parentheses. And then right here, we could just say get custom arrow. So now if you enter in 4, so if 1 through 3, it'll call these static factory methods on the arrow class. And if we enter 4, then we will call this other thing that will run all this code down here to allow the user to pick stuff. And then we'll return a new arrow calling its constructor to get that instead. And now at the end of this, we can say console.writeLine, that arrow costs. You know what? This to me feels like this could be a property. So we could add that in. We could do I personally like that better. A method that's like get whatever makes sense if it's going to take it. Like if it's properties are like the mental model people have of properties are I'm just going to go grab this piece of data off of it. So if it's fast, then it makes sense for it to be a property. If it's something that's going to take 30 minutes to do, it probably should not be a property. It should probably be a get something or compute something or whatever it is. Anyway, so now I can run this, and well, I can already see that I'm missing parentheses there. So I can pick elite. That arrow costs 24 gold. This might have been easier to throw it into a loop. 9.75 gold. 16 gold. And then now if I do the custom one, now it goes into the code that we had before. This one was numbers. I didn't make those two line up. I mean, they were originally, and then we talked through some stuff. All right, what did I get wrong? Oh, when I added in that nuclear warhead, I had added in this, but apparently in all my editing and undoing, all right, there we go. Okay, yeah. So that's it for this. Like I said, the main thing here are these methods that they're just normal methods. They have the static keyword on it, which means that you just use it through the type. They don't belong to an instance. They belong to the class as a whole. So this is not the only purpose for a static method or a static member. There's plenty of other purposes, but this is a useful one. And so it allows us to do this kind of thing where now we can just create a new one. So if these were super common, these 2 or 3 types, to have a way to create them really easily makes sense. And then in this case, we have the other option of creating it with specific values. I will say that in a few cases, sometimes you actually want to prohibit somebody from creating arbitrary instances and want people to only be able to create certain types of things. So one thing you could do to limit, like right now this is public, we could make a private constructor here. And like all the rest, like because it's private, these are allowed to create it. But now you can create arrows, but the one thing you can't do is create one with arbitrary stuff. So now with that little change, everything must be like you can only create one of those 3 flavors. So they're like that's a pretty useful tool. It's not every type that you do want to limit it that way, but there's definitely uses for that. It's a pretty nice little tool. Anyway, I think maybe that is everything there is to say about this for now. So I think I'm going to undo that, make it public again. So we can create custom arrows still. And I think that's it for this challenge. And that's it for this little series of arrow challenges as well. So thanks for joining me, and I will see you next time. We still got plenty more of these to do.